Hey, everybody. Welcome to our four-eyed starts and sits show of the week here at fantasyandframes.com. I'm your host, Jorge Edwards, and with me this week, we have the usual guests here. So let's go around the frame. So Todd, writer here at Fantasy and Frames. How you doing, buddy?
Not bad. How are you?
Doing really well. Looking forward to your article coming out this week. Four-eyed matchups of the week, where he examines the key matchups to look for on offense and some on defense. To give you the extra advantage heading into your weekly matchups. Nate Markham, one of our senior writers and IDP guru over here. How are you doing today?
Ooh, they do that guru tab, huh?
Geez.
I'll take it.
Raising the bar, raising the expectations, exactly.
Lowering the bar for the term guru.
And of course, David from Fantasy Go. Head over to fantasygo.com. Hire us over there to be your personal fantasy football consultants. We can't wait to help everybody who needs assistance. It's a great resource, great interaction with fellow fans. So head over to fantasygo.com. David, how are you doing today?
Not too bad. I'm just I'm hurting from all the injuries that happened over the weekend. I think I can feel it in my ACL. Brutal.
Yeah, it was like 7 people who had torn ACLs after it was all said and done. So head over to fantasyandframes.com. We just put out an article, ironically titled "Surviving the Injury Apocalypse in Week 3." So we're giving you all our start sits at each position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and even all the IDP positions: defensive line, linebackers, and defensive backs. So check that out over at fantasyandframes.com. But today we're going to go over some starts and sits. Again, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receiver, tight ends, and then some IDPs as a whole. And then that's it. Go set your rosters. Get ready for another great week of football. So without further ado, let's get into some starts at the quarterback position. David, let's start with you. Who's a start at the quarterback position you're excited to see this week?
Dude, it's a guy who is in a bigger controversy than the 9/11 saga. It is Justin Herbert, the new quarterback for San Diego Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers. Guys, that was a pretty crazy turn of events. But, man, for someone who just stepped in and he just started slinging it, 311 yards. I understand he didn't get any touchdowns in the air, but he got one on the ground, and he looked fantastic. So, especially against this banged-up Panthers secondary, which really doesn't pose any threat, I'm pretty excited to see what he's going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at, like you said, the offense as a whole looked better with Herbert at the helm. Austin Eckler was more involved. They got Joshua Kelly more involved in his 23 touches, which we'll get to in a little bit. Keenan Allen was involved. Like all these people were involved, and it looked good. It was a high-powered offense, and I think that's what everybody's been waiting to see from a fantasy perspective. Shout out to Tyrod Taylor, and more specifically to the doctor who punctured his lung. Good luck losing your license there, pal. All right. Nate, who's the quarterback you're starting this week?
Jorge, you are sitting down, I see, and I'm glad to know that. You already know where I'm going.
Oh, yeah.
It hurts me. It pains me. It's a kick to my gut. Mm-hmm. It is not the guy from Oregon. That's what Jake and I called Justin Herbert. It's Ryan Tannehill, and I know it. I know it. But you know what? It's about opportunity, and the opportunity is the Minnesota Vikings defense, or lack thereof, is set up for Tannehill to do what he does best, is effectively and efficiently drive the ball down the field. Even
Guys,
without
I'm just going to go take a shower right now, okay?
As dirty as you feel, how do you think I feel? I can barely get through it. But
live it up, gentlemen. It's not going away.
I'm going to need some medical grade soap for this. It's 2020. We're talking about Ryan Tannehill, but I agree with you. Unfortunately, it's true. You look good.
He looked really, really good.
He is. I mean, he's done everything. If you look at average point per drop back, he's 5th in the NFL in that. The Minnesota Vikings ranked 28th against the pass. Everything is kind of funneling towards a complete letdown. Now that I gave the seal of approval on him, now's the time when it goes down to the tanker. So sorry, Ryan Tannehill. I have cursed you.
No. I'm going to do my juju dance and get my chakras all aligned so that I can help Ryan Tannehill continue his hot streak. Todd, who's the quarterback you're starting?
I don't like saying neither with Nate, but I'm gonna go Phillip Rivers. He's thrown 3 picks this year and only 2 touchdowns, but he has the Jets this weekend, and that's a matchup he could definitely exploit. So I'm gonna go with Phillip Rivers this weekend, taking him.
Good call. All right, David, who's somebody that you're sitting this week?
Sitting this week, unfortunately, it's Tom Brady. He does not look good. I understand he didn't have Chris Godwin, but nonetheless, he's still got weapons on that team. He's got my guy Gronk, who obviously hasn't been used. He's got Mike Evans, one of the top 10 receivers in the league. He's got 2 amazing pass-catching running backs, and he just has been below average, to be honest. They were lucky to get away with that game, to be completely honest. It definitely did not look like they were just running away with it.
No, absolutely. My quarterback to sit this week, I know this is going to be somewhat controversial, is Deshaun Watson. Going against Baltimore last week, he was held to 15.7 fantasy points. Now he's going against Pittsburgh, which has the number 1 pass rush unit in the entire NFL. Look, I get he's averaging on the season 18.8 fantasy points per game, but a lot of that came from garbage time against the Chiefs in week 1. So given the state of the receiving affair, is Will Fuller hurt? I heard rumblings. Is he hurt now again? Wouldn't shock me. The Texans rank 25th in run blocking, so 25th in pass blocking. Right, going up against the number 1 ranked pass rush. That just screams disaster. And if Baltimore can hold them to 15.7, I'm scared to see what Pittsburgh can do this week. Nate, who are you sitting?
Actually, Deshaun Watson was one. If you would ever have to start this one, Baker Mayfield, I think you can pretty much avoid this week. I don't like that matchup anymore. I think he's prone to get crushed. 'Cause if we're talking about pass rushing, if I have to look at another team who's designed to get to the quarterback, I don't trust Baker in terms of getting things. Start them.
So Jake Thompson, head over to fantasyandframes.com and read our most recent article. I think you might find that somebody agreed with you there. Todd, who are you not starting this week at quarterback?
I actually agree with you. My guy was going to be Deshaun Watson, but I'll go ahead and switch it over to Matt Stafford. Arizona secondary has looked very, very good. And Matt Stafford is probably a guy I'll shy away from this week.
I may or may not have written about him as well, so I'm going to recuse myself there. If I can quickly go back to one quarterback I am starting this week, and you'll notice a trend on my side. It's Ben Roethlisberger, quarterback 14 on the season with 20.6 fantasy points per game, going against Houston, who's giving up on average 19 fantasy points per game. I mean, this has a one side. This is fantasy. I think who's the guy? Adam Azer on CBS Fantasy Football Today. The Fantasy Bonanza games where everybody's scoring fantasy points. It's going to be a fantasy bonanza for the Pittsburgh Steelers skill players on Sunday. Another quarterback I'm sitting Matt Ryan. I get it. He's quarterback sick, 26.7 fantasy points per game.
Chicago.
The Bears are allowing on average 13 fantasy points to quarterbacks, which is kind of amazing. They have a really good pass rushing unit, top 10. Their run defense is top 5. I really believe that they're going to and then we have the issue with Julio Jones now having a potential hamstring injury, and his availability is in question for this week. And so if he's not available, I just see them really trying to make this offense really one-dimensional, because it's either going to shift to the running game, which has been nearly non-existent for Atlanta with Todd Gurley being there, or it's going to shift to just the passing game. Either way, I just don't see Matt Ryan getting, those fantasy points that he's been getting so far.
Can I ask you, would you start Mitch Trubisky this week versus Atlanta, who has been allowing crazy points to starting quarterbacks?
You mean in place of Matt Ryan? Probably.
Probably. You'd start him over?
This is spicy.
I don't know if I could. That'd be a tough.
I mean, you're definitely bucking the trend of listening to where you drafted people in your draft. Which, by the way, folks listening, my personal opinion is once the draft is over and once the season starts, you can't keep living by the ADPs that you went to draft these players. If a person is a first-round pick and is underperforming, and somebody is a third-round pick and is overperforming or performing consistently well, you start the third-round pick person. You go with the player that's performing. You don't just start a first-rounder because they were a first-rounder. People have to perform in order for you to win fantasy games.
That's one thing. Once draft day starts, draft positions are irrelevant.
Well, it comes down really, I think the question that we all ask ourselves when we make a decision or we have to choose between the two is, do you rather go, I had to start Matt Ryan, I couldn't start Mitchell Trubisky over him, or do you look ahead and think that you're willing to take the kicks if you're wrong, but reap the glory if you're right? And that's all that you're going to do. It's a braggable exercise if you take Trubisky. And I had Trubisky written down. I believe it or not, I have Dwayne Haskins written down as a potential start this week, not over any of the aforementioned players, but just simply because Cleveland's given up 6 passing touchdowns already, and they rank, in the bottom half against the in passing defense. So it's set up for him to be successful, except for his ability. That's the downside. Dwayne Haskins' ability is what's stopping him. Sorry, Jorge, but it's kind of
truth. It's kind of the truth.
It's kind of the truth. I will just
no
let
way,
it
guys.
be at that.
I'm still starting Saquon Barkley. I drafted him second overall. He's going to be good, guys. Bounce back game. It's coming.
I mean, 2021 maybe, but not this year, unfortunately. Running backs. All right, David, since we talked, you started us off on running backs. Who's a running back you're starting this week?
Look, it's a blatantly obvious one, but I like Jerick McKinnon as a 1 week play. Last week he got 3 for 77. You imagine if they give him 30 rushes, he's going to get 770 yards this game, guys. No, I'm joking, obviously, but look, he was very impressive, worked well out of the backfield, impressive with his rushing. There's no one else there. I mean, they're going to be probably picking someone up off the practice squad. Maybe Jeff Wilson comes into town. I do think it's going to be a lot of Jerick McKinnon. And you got to keep in mind, guys, 2 years ago, we were drafting Jerick McKinnon before he tore his ACL in the middle of the second round because of his talent. So don't forget who he was. He's had a couple of years to rest, and we saw what he can do last week. And that was with Mostert and Coleman playing a big chunk of the game. So I'm very excited to see what he does for this week. What happens when Mostert comes back, I'm not sure, but for a 1 week play, he's definitely a good plug and play.
Yeah,
Nice.
He's Pro Football Focus's #1 rushing grade overall. He's also #1 in fantasy points per opportunity at 2.26. So, I mean, those are obviously on limited sample size, but the guy's got ability. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
One thing I want to mention is you just said he has limited sample size. He has 9 touches on the year.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, San Francisco knows he's not a 3-down back. He has 9 touches on the year. So, I'm expecting a healthy dose of Jeff Wilson on Sunday.
So I think McKinnon's going to have something to prove. He wants to show that he got a big payday a couple of years ago, and he wants to show that he's worth it. So I think he's going to be pushing hard. It's going to be a big bounce back game for him. But
so they're averaging about 20 rush attempts per game for the running backs, and there's no way McKinnon can handle that load. Obviously, Jeff Wilson is going to have to at least rush 10 times.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they utilize both, to be honest with you. Like, give me a receiving weapon for the 49ers that you're really worried about. I can't give you one. Deebo Samuel's still not back from injury. I mean, they need somebody out of the backfield to catch, and then Wilson has experience running up the middle. So I don't see why both can't be a viable play this week, to be honest with you.
And McKinnon had 5 targets in week 1. So, I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility. He can catch the ball in the backfield as well. So,
now, I'll tell you this much. Jerick McKinnon, can you believe he converted that 3rd and 31 against the Jets?
Against the Jets, that's the only reason I can believe it.
Right.
Unreal. Nate, who are you starting at running back?
I like David Montgomery this week. Last week, he really impressed me. I think going into in Atlanta's already ranked. They've given up allowed the 10th most points to running backs. They've given up 4 touchdowns already on the ground. I think if they can, it goes back to like we were talking about with Matt Ryan. If the Chicago defense can slow down Atlanta's passing offense and keep Chicago in the game, his positive game script really needs to be in his favor to get enough touches on the ground. But he also had 3 receptions for 45 yards. So he's capable of doing both. Tariq Cohen has been non-existent in the passing game. I know that can change, but it has me a little concerned. Even after they gave him all that money, you thought they would justify the money spent. But it's again, I like Montgomery in that situation. You guys?
Yeah.
I really do like Montgomery too, because last year Cohen had 1 game where he had 3 targets or less. This year, through 2 weeks, he has 3 targets on the season. Yeah. So that's something, if you like Cohen, which I did on drafts before the draft. I'll admit. Right now, I don't like him at all. But so I'm biting that one. But yeah, Cohen is definitely someone I'm dropping probably in the next week or so, and trying to grab someone else because 3 targets through 2 weeks is not what I drafted him for.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. I'm
90
going,
targets the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, he was the number 2 targeted person, or number 3 targeted person last year overall. It's quite the drop off there. I'm going to go with 2 running backs real quickly. James Conner again against Houston. I mean, this is going to be a bloodbath for the Steelers. They're just going to dominate. I mean, he is the RB26 and 10.9 fantasy points per game, but that was let's throw week 1 out the window and look what he did last week. He did very well. On average, the Texans are allowing 28.1 fantasy points per game to the position. This is just going to be a huge week for all Steelers skill position players. And the next one, and I know this is going to maybe rub a few of you the wrong way. Look, any running back that gets 23 rushing attempts in a game,
Here we go.
I want to start on my team,
Especially versus the Panthers.
Especially versus the Panthers. I'm talking about Joshua Kelly. As a flex, I am all about starting this guy because of the matchup. And it's a good matchup to see where, with Herbert, at the helm again, is this the way the offense for LA is going to perform with, using both Kelly and Eckler as the 1A, 1B type of situation.
Yep. Doesn't hurt when they've given up 6 rushing touchdowns on the season either. So that's usually a good.
Yeah, that's okay.
Success.
That's
Maybe.
good too.
Whatever.
That was my star for the week too, Jorge. So I feel you on
Okay.
that.
David,
I wonder
when you
if-
sit,
I was just going to say I'm a little bit cautious about Kelly because he got 64 rushing yards on those 23 attempts.
right?
That's nothing which is going to blow the socks off any coach. If he puts up another performance like that, I don't think we're going to see much of him. If they give him 10 rushes and he's only in it for 30 yards, it's going to be the Austin Eckler show because Austin Eckler, once again, proved that he's the clear-cut number 1 there. So, if Kelly can't punch in on the goal line, if he can't, get at least 4 or 5 yards of carry, then I'm a little bit worried about it.
He did have over 100 scrimmage yards last week. So
Hey, the receiving, he still was involved in the receiving.
Yeah,
game,
so
even though
that's
Eckler was
pretty
the primary
big.
Guy.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's going to be interesting.
A guy I'm sitting, and I'm going to butcher his name. Is it Mike Gaskin, the running back for the Jags? This guy's just been
Dolphins.
overhyped. Sorry, my apologies for the Dolphins. This guy's been getting crazily overhyped. Breeder and Howard are still there, and you got to keep in mind they played 2 pretty darn good teams. I mean, say what you want about the Patriots, but they're playing pretty well right now, and the Bills are just lights out. They're one of the it's got to be top 5 teams in the NFL right now. So it was very game script dependent. I don't think the Jags are going to put up the fight that the Patriots and the Bills did. So it's going to be a different game script. I think we're going to see more Howard and Breeder. So I'm pumping the brakes on Gaskin.
Nate, what do you think about Gaskins this week?
I mean, I think he's a wait and see on your bench just because right now Jordan Howard's pretty much being phased out. He hasn't done – I mean, his usage is pretty much non-existent. Breda's always been the home run, if he can break free. But Gaskin seems to be getting the majority of the work, but that's not good work. Just because you're employed for a crappy job doesn't mean it's a good – and that's pretty much where he's at right now.
because
The only
Howard
thing
gets the goal line.
Right. Which
He has 13 carries for 11 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns on the year.
exactly. Super
The,
solid.
the only upside I like with Gaskins is that he's getting work both in the running game and in the receiving game. I believe he had 7 rushing attempts and 7 targets last week, which was the most out of all the running backs on the team. I thought Howard got hurt last week. I don't know if that's me making up things in my head right now, but I could have swore he got injured last
He
week.
just looked like he was hurt when he wasn't running.
Nice. For
Gaskin's
me,
just sorry, go.
after you, please.
No, I was going to say Gaskin's when you're doing your multiple choice exam and you run out of time and you got to select C for all of them. He's that guy where you're just hoping that something sticks, that you might get one of them, but don't expect big things out of him. That's the thing. In my flex, I like to have someone who has big upside. maybe he does, do nothing, but someone who, ceiling is very high. A big, deep threat like even a Robbie Anderson, even though I'm not a big fan of him, I'd rather someone like that who's got bigger potential upside than just to say floor. That's what I look for in my flex position, and that's just not Gaskin to me.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
I'm sitting Nate, your guy. I'm sitting Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week. Yeah, no, the Ravens are allowing 9.1 fantasy points per game to running backs. Like, no, thank you. I think I think Mahomes is going to air it out, and they'll do fine in that department. But as far as the running game is concerned, I'm just not feeling it. Baltimore has the 16th ranked run D, but they're allowing the fewest fantasy points to running backs. Nope. Not buying it. Sorry, I'm going to pass this week. And that's a hard one because you're investing a first-round pick, right? We go back to this whole investment thing when you drafted these players. At the same time, you have to look at these matchups. That's my
matchup I'm not too fond of this week is Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt against your team. What do you think about that?
So I agree with you with Hunt, but not Chubb.
You think Chubb will still probably break one
I think
off?
Chubb will
and probably score a touchdown, huh?
I think Chubb will get the volume there. I don't think it's going to be one of those games where they're trailing Washington so much that they need to involve Kareem in the passing game too much.
They basically shut down Kenyon Drake, though, last week almost.
Yeah.
And whoever was starting for the the Eagles in week 1, which isn't really saying a lot, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, they did shut down Kenny Drake. Look, that front seven for Washington is no joke. I'm not going to sit here and say that.
That's my worries for the Browns backfield this week. Is that front seven has looked nasty all through 2 weeks. They have looked at one of the best in the NFL.
Right. Let's see here. Nate, do you have one that you're sitting?
Yeah, I've got a couple that I'm not a huge fan. I can't start David. I don't want to start David Johnson with confidence. I mean, I think this is going to be a trend going forward. Any running back going against Pittsburgh necessarily won't be thrilling. And I know we can go back to week 1, mention that Saquon had some just overall value because of the receiving game. But I mean, that was 9 catches, 10 targets. David Johnson has 4 receptions a game. So there's a floor established, but I don't see that big upside game out of him.
Melvin Gordon did all right in the rushing game against them.
But yeah, he didn't do terrible. I mean, but he had that big receiving touchdown when he broke free from the one tackle and made a guy miss.
But he gashed them up the middle a few times. There was 3 or 4 pretty solid runs. That being said, all his others were either negative or virtually nothing. But he did break away for a few good ones.
Yeah, I mean, he averaged 3.7 on the ground against him, and it's better than what Saquon did. So there's steady improvement. But
you don't say.
Yeah,
it was better than what Saquon did, huh?
So the main ad this week is Mike Davis, right? He plays the Chargers. Is that a good matchup for him, or that's a matchup? I'm probably the Chargers are a very good defense.
I'm not buying Mike Davis.
I don't know. I think the capital you had to spend to get him
Not
means you either own Saquon or you own McCaffrey, and you had to invest because you had nothing else, and you're going to start him anyway. You're not going to.
But that is a defense that I probably would avoid most weeks, especially if it's Mike Davis and not Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, shit.
To be honest with you, with Fab this week, I went after Darrell Henderson. He was still on the waiver wire. That's the one I felt the most confident in spending more Fab in. These other guys, Freeman and Miles Davis, or is it Miles Davis? I forget.
Mike Davis.
Mike Davis, thank you. Not the Miles Davis, the jazz musician.
Miles Gaskin.
Right.
That's what you meant.
Or either. Yes.
I'm just confusing all sorts of names. Yeah, I didn't spend any money on those guys. All right, let's go to wide receivers. I'm going Deontay Johnson. Look, this guy as far as all NFL receivers on the season is number 2 in targets behind DeAndre Hopkins only. What do we say about fantasy football? It's all about volume, volume, volume. Well, he's going to get plenty of volume this week against the 23rd best coverage unit, 23rd best, right? Coverage unit in the NFL. Again, like I said during the show, Big Ben, James Conner, Deontay Johnson, especially with the reports that Juju is now missing practices now and he's potentially banged up. That's giving me more confidence in Deontay Johnson this week.
Didn't Deontay have a toe injury as well? that sprang up today?
Oh, does he?
That's what they said. I don't know.
I did not see that.
Did not see that.
Did I?
Jake Thompson is on Facebook, and he's asking us, what about Claypool? He had a great catch.
Boom or bust.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Every week he has about 3 targets. Like he's only getting limited looks. I mean, in a dynasty league, Claypool's a buy, but as of right now, he's with James Washington, Deontay Johnson, and Juju. Claypool's only going to get limited looks, so he can't be. I mean, I know he's scored in both games, right, and had big catches.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I know he's been an option for now, but there's no way he can keep that up on a regular basis.
I mean, he was the training camp darling. There was talks about him, eating into a ton of the carries or a ton of the work there, receptions. I don't know if that was just all hyperbole and they were building him up a little bit. I mean, pedigree's there, but I would have a hard time seeing without an injury to one of the aforementioned guys getting enough work.
we have a special guest on the
Sorry.
show.
Sorry,
No,
guys.
no, it's totally okay.
Quickly say
How are you? Hi.
All right.
David, I was
Sorry,
actually going to get to you. Who's the wide receiver that you're interested in this week?
Ooh, sorry. I'll try and do this quick. Wide receiver
No, it's
I'm interested in is. So I was going to say Keenan Allen. It's an obvious one. The guy I like is Jerry Jeudy. Now, so far, he's gotten 15 targets on the year. He's only caught 8 of them. With Cortland Sutton out now, he's going to be the clear-cut number 1. I'm not buying Hamler. I know Blake Bortles is in town now, and he does like to throw it deep. Judy's routes were very clean, and he made some difficult catches. So I'm very excited to see what he's going to do.
I think with the reports that Fangio said today that they plan to incorporate KJ Hamler more into this passing attack, I think that's going to free up Judy even more so. Again, we're expecting a lot from rookie wide receivers, you know what I mean? But this is trial by fire for receivers in Denver now with what's going on there. Cool. In terms of wide receivers we're sitting, look, I'm sitting DJ Moore. He's likely drawing Casey Hayward in coverage this week. When targeted quarterbacks have a passer rating of 59.6, that's abysmal. Anything over like 95 is okay. 158.3 is the highest. People are having 59.6. Like I'm staying away from DJ Moore this week. Give me Curtis Samuel. Give me Robbie Anderson. Give me some Mike Davis out of the backfield if it gets out of hand. If it gets out of hand, and they're playing from a negative game script, but not DJ Moore. I can't do it. Can't do it. Nate, who are you sitting?
So I'm going to go 2 different ways here. Number one, I'm going to go with it's hard to sit DJ Moore. You and I both know that if you're sitting there facing this decision. But I have a person on that same level with him, and the exact same scenario is Robert Woods. Robert Woods is probably going to be facing Tre'Davious White. Not exactly the best scenario. Tre'Davious White, to put it into perspective, has allowed 0.07 fantasy points per snap. What that means is that you're going to basically need Robert Woods to play about 92 snaps this game to be productive. And, look at that. My other sit is a Mr. Hollywood Brown, who, if you look, is going against the Chiefs, who since 2019 have allowed the fewest fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Jake, excellent. I did not tell him that either, by the way. I was not trying to make him look good, but yeah. And it's worse. I even had this great setup like Dave would normally do. I was like, and I was going to look at Hollywood, and I give him 2 thumbs down, but then it got to my turn, and I panicked, and I was like, So I just went, and Jake stole my thunder. But yeah, those are the 2. Todd, what about you, man?
Yeah, actually, Hollywood was actually my number 1 probably sit for the week because, like you just said. So I'll go ahead and give you my number 2, and it's Robbie Anderson. I know he's had back-to-back 100-yard games and everything, but he goes against the Chargers this week, and the Chargers secondary has looked great. Robbie Anderson's probably a guy I avoid this week.
What do you guys think about Stephon Diggs? I am kind of fading him this week with Jalen Ramsey.
That's what I'm thinking. But then again, you know what? They have an ability, I think, to move Diggs all over the field and try to get him away from Ramsey. But I don't know. I think maybe John Brown might be a sketchier start. Than,
I agree.
I saw a stat. It was like weeks 1 to 5 last year. Diggs had 22 targets, and I think this year through 2 weeks he's had 23,
That's
something
pretty-
like that. So it might have been switched around, but yeah, Stephon Diggs is getting targeted like
Oh, he is. He's
crazy.
like top 5 in
so-
targets, I believe.
See, actually, I'm excited about John Brown this week because Stephon Diggs has established himself as a low-end wide receiver one, you got to admit, through the 2 weeks so far, albeit a small sample size. But that's really opening up lanes for John Brown. Yeah, it's what I was kind of hoping for going into the season. And you're seeing him get targeted. Josh Allen is getting a bit better with his accuracy, you got to admit. So I mean, John Brown's floor is pretty safe. He's the kind of guy who has some great upside too.
Switching over the tight ends really quickly, you mentioned his name earlier, David, and I know he's your guy. But when the head coach comes out and says, we brought, we're not going to pass the ball to tight ends 50 times. That's what we have wide receivers for. We brought him in. He's a great blocker. We brought him in to play tight end. And if that means he doesn't catch a pass, then so be it. He's doing a great job blocking. Does that give you concern? Because we all know about he says one thing and does another, but
it does. I mean, I'm probably going to be going down with the Gronkowski ship. I'm on the Titanic and I'm waiting until the last second until we hit the water. I'll give him a week or two. He's run 44 routes. Obviously, he's only caught, I believe, three catches the week before, 2 or 3 catches, 4 or 5 targets. It's very concerning for Gronkowski, and I don't think that's what he expected going to Tampa Bay. Gronkowski didn't come out of retirement to block for Tom Brady, Right. It is very concerning, to be honest. I'm kind of a little bit worried just because I went very heavy in on Gronkowski in a lot of leagues. So that's a very, very tough position to fill.
Was he your sit for this week, David? Did you actually allow yourself to put him down as the easy sit?
I didn't sit him this week. I'm giving him 1 more week. To be honest, I think part of it is
he's giving him 2 more weeks.
I've been flying the Gronkowski flag everywhere that if I sit him week 3, I'm just going to get berated. So I've got to do it for my for some sort of self-respect, the minimal that I have.
So you have company with that, with the person on the screen right now in terms of the Gronk love. So you both can have your discussions about how good of a pick.
1 more week.
So I want to go back to Jake's comment here about Diggs being too fast for Ramsey. Diggs is a great route runner, and I'm sure he can get all over the field and do everything to finagle himself open. But that requires having a quarterback that has pinpoint accuracy and getting that ball wherever it needs to go, not just out in the open. And that's not Allen. So I think the defensive matchups can be a little bit tougher for Diggs. I don't think it's such an easy start as you maybe think.
The crazy thing is, too, for Josh Allen is right now his accuracy, his completion percentage is up there.
You know what that is? It's because
I know we have all
Diggs,
watched
Diggs takes
videos of him missing wide open John Browns in the end zone and just wide open wide receivers. I know we've all watched videos of that this year. So that completion percentage can be misleading.
He's one we got to keep an eye on, right? Because we said last week he's never thrown for over 300 yards, right? And this week
back to back.
He was my start last week, and he was our number 1 quarterback in the rankings going into the last week.
But are we expecting another 300-400 yard performance?
No.
Mm-hmm.
You can't expect that. That's on that's unfair. That's not unfair.
Kudos to Buffalo. Like they found a way to get these wide receivers open, and he was hitting them. But in tight coverage, I don't see it. I'm not seeing it just now.
Yeah, his passes, like I was even noticing he was doing like little soft touch passes and all different types of stuff versus Miami last week. He was mixing it up like I've never seen Josh Allen mix it up.
Yeah, Miami's secondary, I think going into the season, I was given a lot more credit than what they've given back in return so far. It doesn't mean that I don't think that they're capable. I think that they're also, remember, this is a defensive unit that has 4 or 5 added pieces that's still trying to gel together and get used. So I'm not trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, but there is some learning curve that has to be given to them a little bit.
And they can't, you can't. Defenses work together. So, if your pass rush isn't getting there, then your secondary isn't always working. So it always depends on how your defense works together. So a lot of times, that really matters.
all we're saying is, David, this is our way of saying Gronk will eventually get used to the Bruce Arians system, and this is all just the dating.
I believe
He's
That was
eventually
the
going to want to walk
slowest-
away.
That was the slowest Band-Aid pull I've ever seen in my life. That was
I
was
know.
horrible.
I'm
was
feeling
horrible.
it's still hurting.
Todd, who are you starting at tight end this week, or who are you sitting? Whichever one you want to talk about.
I'll give you both.
Yeah.
Panthers tight ends, I tweeted this earlier, have a target share of 5.4%. So,
Yeah.
Panthers tight end is not startable ever, currently. A guy that I've been adding a lot of places is actually Drew Sample. Just
Okay.
the way that Joe Burrow uses the slot and the tight end and likes to throw inside. We love tight ends on bad teams. That's why Waller was what he was last year, was because he's a tight end on a bad team, got a lot of usage. And obviously the Bengals are not very good. I mean, they're still a couple years away. So the fact that they're going to be down a lot, Burrow loves throwing to the slot. He loves tight ends, as we've seen in college and through 2 games so far. I think he's targeted tight ends 23 times. I think Drew Sample's probably a pretty good play.
Todd, I'm really bummed because I had this really cool setup about how we had a small sample size. I was going to lead into Drew. I was going to crack a joke about Drew Sample, but I'm with you as well. Look, he got targeted 6 times after Uzama was out, and he did well. 6 of 9 targets, albeit that was all garbage time. I don't think we're going to see that level of usage in such a small period of time, but nonetheless, I think 4 to 5 catches, 6-7 yards, and potentially a touchdown is not out of the realm of possibility at all.
And he was a 2nd-round pick, right?
Yeah, he's not some UDFA.
Yeah, that's
who's
I
a
did
shot.
not realize he was a 2nd-round pick until I was watching the game on Thursday, and they mentioned that, and that's pretty high draft capital to throw in for a tight end.
28.6 red zone target share for Drew Sample, by the way, on the season. Jorge, you were going to ask me who my start is.
Yes, sir.
It's pretty evident. It's the one tight end I've talked about now for this would be about 4 weeks straight, even though there's not been 4 weeks of NFL season. And all he's done is do something that it took, Jack Doyle 30 games to do, is have 100 yards receiving on 5 receptions. He's done that in his first game. That's Mo Alley-Cox. Mo Alley-Cox is, I got to tell you, I know that this might be grasping at straws and connecting the two, but Phillip Rivers to a basketball pedigreed tight end that has good hands, and he's making it work. Now, I'm not saying this Antonio Gates because that's a huge stretch to put him into the same caliber of an NFL Hall of Famer, but he looks the part of a legitimate beast at tight end. Yeah,
Look what he did with Hunter Henry. Phillip Rivers with Hunter Henry when healthy, he fed him the ball non-stop. He was getting 6+ targets a game. So I'm with you.
Would you say he's the Ryan Tannehill of tight ends?
Oh, God.
No. We're back there, are we? All roads lead to Ryan Tannehill. A guy that I'm tempering my expectations on, you're playing him. That's an absolute given. But it is Darren Waller. And I'm just saying because Monday night, he was the whole offense. There was no Henry Ruggs. Even though they fed, Josh Jacobs, one of the best running backs in the league right now. It was the Darren Waller show. The Patriots have a good secondary, and they're not going to allow Waller just to run all over him and get, 15 targets, 13 catches, 15
16,
targets?
I think. 16 targets.
There's zero chance Belichick is going to allow that to happen. So I'm not saying they're going to phase him out, but I'm just saying don't expect 16 targets, 13 catches for 100-something yards out of Waller this week.
Very good, guys. All right, let's round out the show by talking about some IDP starts and sits. I'm going to start with Chase Young. Start. Number 2 defensive lineman / edge rusher, according to Sleeper, the Sleeper app ranking system, utilizing the Fantasy Pros. A lot of stuff going on there. Utilizing the Fantasy Pros scoring system, coming off of 2 14-point fantasy games. He's turning into an IDP monster. He's getting to the quarterback. He's creating tons of pressures. Look, he's going to have his handful this week. going against the Browns' offensive line, which is actually pretty good in pass blocking. But I'm with Todd. What you were saying earlier, this front seven is just unreal. I think Chase Young is reaching must-start status. Another defensive end I want to bring to your attention. His name is Trey Hendrickson. He's the opposite defensive end of Cameron Jordan in New Orleans. He has I think the top 2 total tackles at defensive end in the NFL, I believe, if not on the Saints. He definitely is. It's in the NFL. He is somebody that could definitely do some damage. So just keep an eye on his name, Trey Hendrickson. I wouldn't play him this week because he's going up against David Bakhtiari, the left tackle of the Green Bay Packers, who is ranked according to PFF as one of the top 10 tackles in all of football. But going forward, Trey Hendrickson, definitely a pickup there. And then my IDP sit is Kenneth Murray of the Chargers. And it all comes down to game script. I just feel like this isn't going to be a running up the middle offense for Carolina. I think they're going to be playing from behind. I think they're going to be throwing it to Mike Davis a lot, throwing it to their pass catchers. And that's not conducive for a middle linebacker or inside linebacker, a.k.a. those hashtag tackle machines. I see his volume going down, his tackle opportunities going down, therefore his tackle volume going down. Not a safe play this week. Nate, you got anybody for IDP?
I do. I have 2 starts. One's not a traditional start. If you're in a league that happens to, you could start him anyway. And at defensive back, he's an actual cornerback. Cornerbacks aren't typically started in IDP formats because if you're actually a good corner, you're not targeted, you can't score points. But CJ Henderson, who Jorge and I have talked about before, is actually turning into a really good corner that just happens to be still picked on. He's been targeted on about 26% of the time, so he's still getting work coming his direction, but he has the most pass breakups in the NFL. He's going to be lined up probably with Preston Williams, and I don't think Preston Williams has the ability to necessarily burn him on too many occasions. I see a lot of opportunity there, and let's be honest, there's a chance that Fitzmagic might chuck a couple up that Henderson picks off and gives him value. So if you start a cornerback, it's one that I would keep an eye on. And if you have to start a defensive tackle, to me, there's no better defensive tackle right now in this week's matchups than DeForest Buckner. DeForest Buckner going against the Jets line. The Jets' interior line has given up 18 total hurries so far through 2 weeks. That's the most in the NFL. DeForest Buckner right now should just absolutely eat against that defensive line. But then again, like we said, defensive tackles are tough to score IDP because you're not getting necessarily all the volume. But look for DeForest Buckner to finish overall near the top of that. And if I'm sitting anybody, it's the opposite of who you were talking about starting. I'm sitting Cameron Jordan. I just don't like anybody against that Green Bay offensive line. They're number 1 ranked by Pro Football Focus and efficiency. So, I mean, everything's designed. Cameron Jordan hasn't been that productive so far as a whole anyway.
No, I agree completely. He was actually almost my sit. But I believe Wilkins or somebody, I think Wilkins is his last name. Robert Wilkins is the right tackle for Green Bay. And he hasn't allowed too many pressures or hurries. But then again, he was spared, Danielle Hunter. He didn't really face anybody last week. So this will be a test for him. But no, he's definitely somebody, Cameron Jordan, going back to what you're saying, who I'd be fading this week just because of the lack of production this year.
So Jorge and Nate, can I ask y'all something with Solomon Thomas and Nick Bosa going down? Is DeForest Buckner the guy you think stepping up for them?
DeForest Buckner's not he's in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
They traded him for a first-round pick.
Well, okay. So in the 49ers then, with those two going down, who do y'all think? Is there anybody y'all think stepping up or? So
Eric Armstead, like Jorge said, is the obvious, I think, answer. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper with the name just by next man up is a name by Kerry Hyder Jr. He's going to fit in. He has a 12.1 pass rush percentage so far with a minimum of 30 attempts, which ranks in the top 12 in the NFL so far. So, I mean, he's got that opportunity. He's old. I mean, the guy's been in the league for like 7-8 years now. So he's never really done much, but he's never had an opportunity. So I think now's a good chance for me to probably put my foot in my mouth and him to be absolutely non-productive and do nothing. But he's a name to keep in mind. And like Mo Alley Cox, we'll start talking about him in the next couple weeks.
Jake, if the Jets shock somebody, you can come on the show next week. How about that? We'll see. We'll see what happens.
So Gronk has to score a touchdown, and the Jets have to upset.
I think just with the Jets alone, the Jets upsetting somebody.
So Jake's not coming on.
I don't know. We'll see. He's been a good participant here at Fantasy and Frames. And with that,
I think he
that
should
wraps-
come on anyway.
I think you're right. So anyhow, David, thank you very much for stopping by again this week. It's always a pleasure having you with us. Hopefully you'll be with us in the Four-Eyed pregame show on Sunday if you're available. Nice.
We'll be there.
Nate, Todd, as always, gentlemen, it's been great. Go back and read Nate's IDP waiver wire article. If there are still players that are on your waiver wire that are in that article, he wrote them down. He wrote about them for a reason. Go pick them up if you have space on your roster. Todd, your Four-Eyed Matchups article will come out, I believe, tomorrow or the next day, one of those two.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're looking forward to seeing that. The good matchups this week to exploit, so you can get some fantasy football victories. Look, I'm like all of you all. We all suffered the injuries in week 2, and this is what really tests you as a fantasy manager, being able to really make those really difficult lineup decisions and put people in good positions to get you fantasy points, and that's what we're hoping to do here at Fantasy and Frames. So for David, for Nate, for Todd, I'm Jorge. We'll catch you on Sunday at the Four-Eyed pregame show. Take it easy.